What's up, everyone? This is Robert Ross with the Nomad Business and Lifestyle Podcast. Do you daydream about quitting your job, walking away from your 9-to-5 corporate lifestyle, but curious how other people afford their lives traveling and living in a far-off location? 10 years ago, I quit my financial services job, sold everything I owned, and moved to a small surf town in coastal Ecuador with nothing but my dog, 6 surfboards, and a suitcase. Since then, I built a large hotel and real estate business in Montañita, Ecuador, called the Mi Hotel and Villas Montañita Estates. But most importantly, I created the environment where I can focus my energy in every minute of the day doing exactly what I want to do, whether it's spending time with my family, surfing, kite surfing, and growing the Mi Hotel. Along the way, I've spent countless hours meeting and talking to others who have traded in their corporate lifestyles to take control of their future, enjoying the life of the nomadic traveler and business abroad. On this podcast, I'm going to share my experiences and those of others that are following their passions of living in exotic locations, while most importantly, continuing to earn and create business opportunities. Hey everyone, this is Robert Ross from the Nomad Business and Lifestyle Podcast. Hope everybody's doing well. Down here in Santa Marinita, Ecuador, it is a rainy day. Thought I'd check in a little bit about a topic that came up recently. This is something new that I'm trying, so I usually like to have guests on, keep it as a conversation, but I recently had a listener of my podcast contact me, said he wanted to talk about investment advice for Ecuador. So I gave him a call, and he brought up that he had just visited Galapagos and wanted some advice about investing in the Galapagos. And I thought about it because I hadn't really thought about it in a while, and I gave him my advice, and I thought I'd share a little bit about my thoughts about Galapagos with you guys because it's a very cool place. For everybody that doesn't know, Galapagos is part of Ecuador, and I've been there 3 times. I've been living in Ecuador for about 10 years. I've been there 3 times, and there are 3 very different trips. So I went there the first time as a couple. The second time I went there on a surf trip, and the third time I took my kids. So it was 3 very different experiences. Galapagos is about a 2-hour flight from Guayaquil. So it's a very easy flight. There's a time change when you get there. It is a full day worth of travel. So because there's only a few flights a day, and the times of the flights, you can't just kind of buzz into Ecuador and or it's difficult to line up a flight and cut out a day of travel. So you really do have a day of travel on both sides, which means for me, I think the least amount of time that you can visit Galapagos is about 4 nights. If you try to do it any less than that, you're just losing too much time on either side of the visit. The good news is that once you're here, it's super easy to get there. So for us, Galapagos is not a very big deal. We can pop over there, a couple $100, and it's very, very easy. So I got a lot of people asking me about the Galapagos, and it really depends on the length of your trip. If you're trying to come to Ecuador for a week, the Galapagos is going to be your entire trip. But if you've got 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks, Galapagos is a very easy hop over there, and you're really doing well. Flights only cost once you're here about $500 round trip. If you live here, it's even cheaper. So I think I can fly there anytime I want. There's always availability for just $150, and that happens once you have a cedula. So the Galapagos has 3 islands that you mainly visit. There's 2 different ways to do the Galapagos. The first is on a boat, and most locals, the guys that live here, don't do Galapagos on a boat. It's very, very expensive. So I had family members coming down from the U.S., and they wanted to do a cruise in the Galapagos, and it's very expensive. We're looking for 4 people. I think I priced it out, and I'm an insider, that we're looking at a 5 to 7 day cruise, and it was going to be about $3,000 to $4,000 per person. Doesn't sound like a lot, but for 4 people, I had my kids with me. It was going to be $15,000, $16,000, $20,000. The way the locals like to do the Galapagos is we fly over there and then we book a place to stay. So there's a few vacation rentals over there. I think we ended up paying $500 a night for a vacation rental. Really great house in Santa Cruz. And instead of spending $15,000 on a boat, we spent about $3,000-4,000 on a really great house, and then we did day trips. So most locals, what they like to do is they fly over there, rent a place, and then most of the things you do on a boat, you can do on a day trip there, or you can do a short cruise. They've got tons of tour agencies. You just walk into a tour agency, and there's some islands. Isabella, where you're going pretty far out in the cruise, you're not going to make it to there. But most of the day trips that you're doing, or most of the nature trips that you're doing with these boats, with these luxury cruises, you can get on day trips if you just fly out there. So let me talk a little bit about my experiences that I had out in the Galapagos and what I think of it. So when I went there the first time, I'd been living in Ecuador for about a year, and back then, before this life of surfing and kiting, and I like to take long vacations when I visit countries. I like to go for a month or two and uh, really feel like I'm living there and explore. Back then, when I used to work for a bank and as a consultant, I would do luxurious vacations for a week, 2 weeks. You only have 3 weeks of vacation for a year. So after living here for a year, me and my girlfriend at the time, I said, let's go take a luxurious vacation in the Galapagos. And when I got there, I was a little bit surprised. So we'd been living in Ecuador for about a year, and it was like outdoor camping. I loved it. I surfed every day. It was raw. Salvaje is the word in English. Limited internet, limited electricity, limited roads, and I really wanted to get out into the Galapagos to feel like my vacations used to feel like, which was luxurious, a nice hotel, really good food, some shopping, kind of that. I wanted it to feel like the Caribbean or Hawaii, first world. And when I got there, it just wasn't that. So what I learned really quickly is that Galapagos is just like the rest of Ecuador. It's not a luxurious place for the most part. There are a few nice hotels which run between $500 and $1,000 a night. And the rest of them, they're really kind of a lot of budget hostels. And they're expensive budget hostels, so they're not cheap. And you're not getting very much for your money. And I think we went over there with a budget of, we wanted to spend $100 to $200 a night for a hotel room. And what we learned quickly was you don't get anything for that. It's either $300 to $500 a night, or a $20 budget hostel. Second, there's no shopping, there's no boutiques, there's nothing like that. It's very much like the rest of Ecuador. The indigenous people live there, and there's just not a lot of shopping and options as far as first world development. I'm going to tell you a little bit about why that is in a little bit, but you just don't find that there. All the luxury is on the boats. So if you want a luxurious Galapagos vacation, you really need to be on the boats. The hotels are overpriced, and what you're getting for $500 a night, honestly, it's just not worth it. So that was my feeling when I went there as a couple. It hasn't changed much. So I've gone back a few times in the last 10 years, and it hasn't changed much. Now, I live in Ecuador, and I experience Ecuador every day. The culture, the food. So for me, it wasn't that exciting because it wasn't like leaving Ecuador. But for those people that come down here and want to experience Ecuador, it's a great option because you're getting what we get every day in Montanita and Santa Marinita, the food, the people, the culture. It's just in the Galapagos also. It's not any different there. And there's really nothing wrong with that. I love Ecuador. So, but for me, it wasn't like taking a vacation. It was like going to Montanita Light and paying 3 times as much. So that's the other thing about it. For those of us who are living in Ecuador, it's 3 times as expensive as mainland Ecuador. So living in Montanita, my hotel, I have a hotel, average ticket for a room, for a nice room, nicer than we were staying. As nice as what you get in the Galapagos, you're paying $100 bucks a night. That same hotel room in the Galapagos is going to be $350 to $400 a night. The other thing about the Galapagos is these are volcanic rocks. So they're not, if you're thinking Jurassic Park, jungle, you're not getting that there. These are volcanic rocks. They're arid. There's parts of it that you've got some more green up in the mountains, but it's arid. The main animals there are that Darwin became famous for studying are birds, lizards, and fish. So that it's not it's an amazing natural vacation, but we have more animals and wildlife on mainland Ecuador. So back then, and I've changed a bit, I was always looking for jungle. I wanted it to be very tropical. That's not what you get out there. There's not these huge cliffs like what you'd see in the movies. It's volcanic rock. It's flat. It's arid. People ask me, they want to come to Ecuador for a week or two, and they want to see as much as they can. I said, well, are you coming to Montanita? And they'll say, yeah. You probably shouldn't do the Galapagos. You don't need to do both, because in Montanita, you're actually getting more nightlife, more natural life, more nature, better restaurants, more international restaurants. At a third of the price, and then go up to the mountains. I would always recommend people go up to Cuenca, go up to Baño, see the Andes, because they're very different. If you're going to visit the Galapagos and Montanita or the coast here, they're going to be very, very similar. And I'd even say Montanita is better because it's a better price, it's more tropical, you're getting a lot of the same things culturally that you would get in the Galapagos. So there's three main islands that you visit when you go to the Galapagos. There's Santa Cruz, which is my favorite island. I love it. It's beautiful. It's probably got the most things on it. So it's got the most restaurants, most tour agencies. None of the Galapagos is developed. So the government restrictions here only allow something like 1% of the islands to be developed. And so none of them are developed. It still feels undeveloped. But you've got a few more things, more options. The surf island is called San Cristobal. And for people, that's really a surf island. There's not really much else to do there besides surfing and some tours. So I would actually, if you're not a surfer, I would skip San Cristobal. And the last island is Isabela, which is a much smaller, bigger island geographically, but smaller island in terms of it's just sandy beaches. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful. Some great tours out there. So you would generally fly into Santa Cruz or San Cristobal. The thing about Santa Cruz is the airport, once you land at the airport, is about an hour and a half from the airport to where you stay in Puerto Arroyo. So if you want to get there quickly, you can fly into San Cristobal, which is a surf island, but really there's not much more to do in San Cristobal besides relax and surf. And then you would need to take a boat over to Santa Cruz, which I believe is about an hour and a half or 2 hours. It's a cheap boat ride. It's actually really beautiful, but just know you're not going to get much when you're in San Cristobal besides surfing. That goes to my second trip there, which was a surf trip. So I went for all you surfers out there that listen to me, I went to San Cristobal on a second trip with my friends, and it was a very cool trip. Galapagos has amazing surf, really, really good surf. The thing about the Galapagos and San Cristobal, which is tricky, is that not much of the Galapagos is accessible without a boat. So there's a very small area where they let you surf without a boat. Because I told you that there's this kind of there's two ways to do Galapagos. There's very expensive and very cheap. There are a fair amount of surfers that just go and stay there for a month in San Cristobal. And so what you'll run into when you fly in there is that the main three spots which you can walk to, which are right out in front of where you stay in San Cristobal, can get very crowded with very good surfers. So Galapagos is not a beginner spot. If you like if you want to go to the Galapagos, um, intermediate to expert surfer. The water is a little colder. The waves are big when the waves hit, and you're going to be surfing with a pack of 10 Brazilians that have decided to live there for a month. So it's tricky. There's three main spots. There's Corolla, Tonga Reef, which are accessible through walking. But let's say there's 50 guys, 50 people that have gone there to surf. All those spots can be crowded. So the way to do the Galapagos surf, if you really want to go out there to surf, is with a boat. Now, there's spots out there that are absolutely stunningly amazing to surf by yourself. My recommendation for people that want to surf the Galapagos is to go with 4 or 5 friends with money and rent a boat every day. Boats are going to run you with a good guide, 500 to $1,000 a day, and go explore. That's the only way to do it. You'll surf by yourself. You'll surf epic surf. But I think if you spend all the money and time to come down here and you try to just fly to San Cristobal and catch surf, there's a good chance it's going to be flat. There's a good chance that it's going to be crowded, and you just flew a really long way for nothing. If you have access to a boat, the way the islands work, there's always swell. Also check the swell. So San Cristobal is south facing. No, San Cristobal is northwest facing, and Santa Cruz is the part of the island that's accessible is south facing. And I once, on my trip that I went out there to just surf, I flew out there and the swell was pumping in Montanita, and I flew out there with a couple buddies, and it was much smaller in the Galapagos, and it's because of the direction of the swell. And the currents, and there's a lot of different factors out there, but a lot of times the swell will be bigger on mainland Ecuador than it will be in San Cristobal or in Santa Cruz. So definitely check the swell direction, look at it on a map, check the forecast. It's not just you're on an island in the Pacific so you know you scored, because a lot of the areas where you surf are super inaccessible without a $600 boat ride. And we ended up getting a boat ride and finding surf, and it was big and gnarly, but I don't know if it was better than Montanita at the time. So just my advice to you surfers out there: don't try to go and just camp out in San Cristobal for a week. It's not a great surf trip. If you're going to do that, come to mainland Ecuador. There's more access, fewer people. It's not as concentrated in one area. We can spread you out. We can surf up and down the coast. We got areas that hit north and south. So definitely think about that before you go. The last trip I did there was a family vacation, and I went with my mom, my aunt, and my kids. And this is the best way to do the Galapagos. So, I just gave kind of mixed feelings about going out there as a couple. Going out there as a surfer, I didn't love either of those trips, to be honest. More because I live here in Ecuador, and I think a lot of the things that I was paying 3 times as much for in the Galapagos, I get right in front of my house every day. If I want ceviche for $20, I'll do that in the U.S. I get ceviche for $6 in front of my house. Same with fresh fish, delivered to my door. So I didn't need to go to the Galapagos. When I brought my kids out there, the look on their face was amazing, because you get out there, you're on this beautiful island, the water's beautiful. We stayed in a house where we had to take a boat taxi everywhere. When we pulled into the dock, we were seeing sharks in the water right underneath our feet. Baby sharks. They weren't going to hurt us or anything. You're walking down the road, and there's seals everywhere. There's sea lions everywhere. Birds. The birds come right up to you. The mixture between the wildlife right outside your door and where you stay, because it's so mixed together, it really is stunning. So my kids felt like they were living in a zoo for a week, and we did some amazing tours with them where we took them snorkeling and boat trips and things like that, and they really did love it. So it's not a great luxurious vacation unless you have a lot of money and you want to go on a boat. It's not a great surf vacation unless you have a lot of money and you have a good guide. It is a great adventure vacation with kids. I would bring my kids back there and plan more stuff around my kids because they really did love it. At the time, they were, I think, 3 and 5. If I took them back now, they're 7 and 5. I think they'd really love it. So that's from a vacation standpoint what I think about the Galapagos. So the last part of this is about my conversation I had the other day with a listener that wanted to talk about Ecuador, and I didn't know what we are going into when we talked, but he said he had just visited the Galapagos, and he was looking at investing in the Galapagos. He had at the hotel he stayed at. He sat down and talked to the owner of the hotel. This happens quite often in Ecuador, and all of a sudden he was pitched on a investment of a few $100,000 to be a part of their hotel, build another building on land that they said they own, and he was considering it, and he just wanted some advice on it. And I was glad he called because I was very emphatic in my response. Don't even consider it. So, for those of you who are thinking about investing in Ecuador, what you need to know about the Galapagos is, although it's part of Ecuador, the government treats it as its own country. So, basically, if you were born in Ecuador, born in mainland Ecuador, in Montanita, you can't move to the Galapagos and go get a job because there's tons of jobs out there. They've got a great tourism industry. You need a special visa. If you're born in mainland Ecuador, in Montanita, you can't buy land in the Galapagos. You have to be born in the Galapagos to buy the land. And it's the only place in all Ecuador that has these rules. If you want to buy land in mainland Ecuador, you can just come in with your passport, the money, the cash you need, transfer it right in, and you own the land. You've got a title in your name. Galapagos, they don't permit anybody who's not born in the Galapagos to own land there. And I said it looked a certain way. It looked kind of undeveloped. It's not luxurious. This is the reason there's not really any investment allowed in the Galapagos. They've kept the areas where people can live and can invest very small, and they don't allow any outside investment. So there's no international brand hotels. I've heard over the years, I've been here 10 years and nothing's changed. So for the last 10 years, the only people I know that have invested in the Galapagos are people who married somebody who was born in the Galapagos, or very wealthy, politically connected families that aren't worried about losing their property in court, that do things like companies, and it's just not common. I know it's common in other countries to set up a business that owns the property. It's just not common here in mainland Ecuador. We don't have to do those types of things because the land laws are set up to allow investment except for Galapagos. So, these people asked my listener if they wanted to invest, and they would set up a company. She was from Quito, he was from somewhere else. And I told him, frankly, no, it's not worth the risk. I mean, if he'd been here for 10 years and he'd known them, and, it was a family member and he was confident, but, my recommendation to him was that money, you might as well just set it on fire if you want to invest in the Galapagos. There's just too much risk. It'll be 10 years before you even think about getting your money back. And I don't think you're going to get your money back. I think you're going to be tied up in something that they can't sell because, like I said, unless they change the laws here, nobody wants to invest there. It's complicated and risky. Now, the other side of that is Galapagos has the best tourism in the world. People who go there want to spend a lot of money. It's international, people from all over the world. It's world renowned. If there is a safe way to do the investment there, I've always thought I'd love to open a hotel there because people pay. There's no competition. People pay $500, $700, $1,000 a night for pretty average accommodations because there's no competition. All of the competition is on the boats. So you've got these luxurious boats that people bring from around the world that pay thousands of dollars in taxes and permits, and they're very expensive. I would never rule it out. I've been here 10 years. I've never thought about it. It's always been too risky for me. I've thought about it, but it's always been risky to me. I've never come close to doing an investment. I know people who have a hotel there, and they're very wealthy, connected family, and that's it. And I've been here for a long time, and I know a lot of people. So that's just kind of my sense on investing in the Galapagos. And overall, my feeling on it. Overall, I mean, I love the Galapagos. It brings people from around the world. Unfortunately, we lose out on a lot of those people coming to Montanita. There's a fair amount of tourism that goes to Quito and goes straight out to the Galapagos, and that's a really nice vacation in Ecuador. I think in Ecuador, we're very lucky. It's a very small country, but we've got all these different climates. We've got the beach. On the beach, we've got an arid area where I live right now in Santa Marianita, and we've got a jungly area down in Montanita. Surf year round. Then you go to the mountains. It's like being in a different country. You've got the Andean mountains, Andean culture, Incan culture. It's beautiful. You're up in the mountains, completely different from the coast. Then you've got the rainforest. Amazing. I haven't even been out there, to be honest. I need to go. I've been here 10 years and I haven't been to the rainforest because, to be honest, where I live is there's so much nature, and it feels like I live in a rainforest. So to go travel 10, 15 hours out there. And lastly, the Galapagos. So there's so many different parts of doing a vacation here in Ecuador, in such a small country. To do all of that, you would need a month. And we lose a lot of people to the Galapagos. I think it's a very different vacation than Montanita in sense of money, but very similar in what you get. So if you're interested in coming to Ecuador and seeing the beaches, and you want a little taste of what the Galapagos would be like, but you don't have the time to fly out there and spend the $15,000 on a cruise, and come to Montanita, you're getting a lot of what you'd get in the Galapagos at a quarter of the price. And then from a surf standpoint, same thing. I do believe the surf is better on mainland Ecuador. It's more diverse. It's year round. Water's warmer. We have spots for every swell direction. But Galapagos is an amazing, amazing vacation. It's a vacation you'll never ever forget. To go surfing in the Galapagos is a bucket list kind of thing. So I could never tell you don't do it. But if your time is limited, if you don't have 3-4 weeks here in Ecuador and you had to choose, I would choose mainland Ecuador. The surf is much better, more consistent than the Galapagos. And then the type of vacation you're taking, definitely recommend the Galapagos for an adventure vacation with family. Amazing, amazing, lots of nature. It's going to be expensive, but it's worth it. It'll be memorable your whole life. Couples vacation, not so much. Surf vacation, how I feel. But for an adventure family vacation, really an amazing, amazing spot. So that's my sense on the Galapagos. I hope you guys liked this podcast. The first time I've just sat down and talked into a microphone for a half hour. I'm in Santa Marianita. It's actually a rainy day here. So this is my first rainy season in this part of Ecuador. I've lived in Montanita during our surf season. I like to say we got two seasons in that I live in. We've got surf season and kite season. Surf season is year round, but the best time of year is December through May, and that's usually when I'm in Montanita. This year with the pandemic, I just decided to stay up here in Santa Marianita year round. Our kite season, turns out, is about 10 months because I foil and I've got special kites. We're starting to get rain here. This is a very arid place. It's got weather kind of like Southern California, 80, beautiful, no humidity year round. And then this is our month for rain in February. I guess we get a little bit of rain. No big deal. It can handle it. But it's surprising. First rainy day I've ever had in Santa Marianita. I've been here since June, and this is the first day of rain. So pretty cool. Hope everybody's well. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and feel free to write me, message me if you have questions about Galapagos or coming to Ecuador.